right, gentlemen, if you could each tell me your name, your major, or your field of study.
All right, well, my name is Dustin Griffin. I'm with the psychology department. My focus is in industrial organizational psychology, and that's what our research is focused around. It's the psychology of the workplace. How do we interact in the workplace, and also what do we think about when we're in the workplace?
If you want to introduce yourself, sir.
All right, my name is Brendan Kerwin. I am a psychology major at Eastern Kentucky University, and my field of study is industrial organizational psychology as well.
Well, Brendan's already told us a little bit, but if you could tell us a little more about your research project.
Okay, so our research was a meta-analysis. So we collected 23 scholarly articles that focused on factors that cause attrition. Attrition is when an employee leaves their job. So we found 23 articles that had the quantitative data that we needed to conduct our analysis. We found about 67 variables that were measured on their relationship with attrition. We broke down these 67 variables into 8 categories of factors, which you can see here. We have demographics, service history, worker type, job dissatisfaction, social orientation, reasons for leaving, individual characteristics, and turnover intention. And so we have some pretty large effect sizes in some of these and some not so much, such as contingent rewards or lack thereof, which we got a relationship of at least 0.8. And so what that is you have a certain amount of money you believe your work is worth, and when you are being paid that amount, when that amount that you think and the amount you are getting paid coincide, you're more likely to stay at that job. You see, so that was a pretty interesting finding. A limitation of our research was that not all the articles measured the same variables. We had about 67 variables, as I said before, that were measured, but not all the articles measured those 67 variables. So we think that further research should really focus on duplicating those measures and measure those variables so that we can get a stronger look at what really affects attrition.
So, Brendan, tell me about you're Dustin.
I'm Dustin.
You're Brendan. I am sorry.
That's all right.
Tell me a little more about your experience in just doing a research project.
Well, this specific research project was done within a month and a half. So we originally started with 100 articles that we looked at, and what we looked for were correlation tables or correlation matrices, because we wanted the quantitative data to be able to conduct the analysis. So in a span of about a month and a half, we perused about 100 articles, came down to about 23 that had the quantitative data that we needed, and then also we created our poster and did all the analyses within that time. So the course that we're doing this for is for a grad prep course, pretty intensive. I say it's, as undergraduates, this was an excellent way to prepare for an undergraduate course. We use the library resources quite a bit, especially the databases that we are afforded as students at Eastern. So it was a big help to be able to find these articles that were directly related to attrition. It really sped up the process instead of going through the journals themselves trying to find them.
Wow. I had a question. I am so sorry. What was the most interesting part of doing this research?
The most interesting part, I think the topic itself is pretty interesting, why people leave their jobs. And I didn't know much about the topic before doing this research, but going through all these articles and seeing exactly what causes people to leave their jobs and the things that businesses measure to do that was probably the most interesting thing for me, is just learning all the things that go into why people leave their jobs and how companies try to keep their employees to stay within their companies.
So do you gentlemen plan to continue this research in the future?
I don't know if we will necessarily be doing this research in the future. In IO psychology, it's a huge problem with attrition, so it certainly gives us a good place to start if we want to do that in graduate school. I'm sure any graduate school would be interested in really getting into attrition and finding how we could really improve upon it. Because right now, as Brandon was telling you, in the field, we can't really agree on what needs to be measured in order to find out what is causing attrition or how to manipulate it. So it's still a wide open field. So yeah, I could certainly see us doing work in attrition in graduate school. Whether I want to or not, I don't know. In a program for graduate school, you don't really get to necessarily decide what you're going to be researching on. You know.
What about you? Do you plan to continue this research in the future?
I believe it's an interesting topic, and I could go on after this research. Using what I learned, I could go on and further it. So I believe it is a direction I'd like to go. And anywhere within IO psychology, I'm interested in. But to have this first step here, I would consider it an option. Yes.
All right, one more question. If you could pick the one most interesting thing about your research, what would it be? And you can't both tell me the same thing.
I think the most relevant thing that's going on right now when it goes to this research is that we're talking about raising the minimum wage, right? And this research really extends the idea that paying more to your employees might actually save you more money in the long run. There was a statistic by the Center for Human Resources and Management that said an $8 an hour employee takes about $3,500 to replace if they leave the job, because you got to think of training and hiring them and such. So in the long run, it might be worth. Hobby Lobby does this. It might be worth it in the long run to pay what would normally be an $8 an hour employee $13 to $15 an hour to make sure that they get the right contingency reward. So it's, as Brendan was talking about earlier, so what they think they should be paid is in line with what they're actually paid, because that was our largest finding or largest effect size as far as why people were leaving their jobs in the first place.
All right, and your most interesting thing?
All right, so a limitation, as I said, was that most of these variables had only been measured once. But job dissatisfaction had been measured by multiple articles. And they did find that there is a relationship between job satisfaction and whether you're going to leave your job or not. So it sort of coincides with that idea that you got to work at what you love, and if you do, you're not going to work a day of your life. You're going to stay at that job. And so to find some proof of that saying was pretty interesting to me, I'd say.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. We wish you all the best of luck in today's showcase and in graduate school. Thank you for your time.